Hey, this is Will. So this episode is going to be the ultimate cost of living in Chiang Mai, Thailand guide. I am going to explain all of the different aspects so you know exactly what to expect and how much money to budget and all of that kind of stuff. By the way, I have some very useful freebies if you're into this digital nomad lifestyle, and in general if you're into digital marketing, online business, all of that kind of stuff. Check out all of the links in the description. I will also make sure to have an article on this where I keep all of the information updated, so check that out and check out my social media as well, my Instagram, my Twitter. Now let's jump into it. So the first thing is eating out, and this honestly is probably the best part about Chiang Mai, Thailand in general. First of all, the food is absolutely amazing. It depends what exactly you like, but I think Thai food is in my top 3 overall food in the world. And if you want to go out and eat a local meal in Chiang Mai, it can be honestly as cheap as $1 to $2. It is incredibly mind-blowingly cheap. So there's a lot of stalls that are sort of street food where, as they say, you can basically get a meal for $1 or $2, maybe max you might pay $3 in sort of a little bit more of like a restaurant. And you definitely have these nicer options that are actually very nice, modern looking restaurants that are a little bit more expensive, but honestly, nothing is crazy. It's all still very affordable. Even if we look at eating Western food, you still have some places that are very nice. And I would say for lunch, you might only pay maybe around $5 for a Western dish, and for dinner maybe a little bit closer to $7-8. So still honestly very cheap. When it comes to groceries, I would say that Thailand, well, if you go in Chiang Mai, you do have these local vendors, basically from local farmers, and that can be very cheap for all of your vegetables, all that kind of stuff. If you don't really want to do that, or you just want to go to supermarket, and it's going to be, I would say, nothing really crazy expensive or crazy cheap. The only thing I would say that is quite a bit more expensive if you're going to cook yourself, that is foreign goods. So if you're buying foreign products, they are a lot more expensive, sometimes maybe 2-3 times more expensive than what you might pay for them back home. And in general, honestly, most of the people that I know, no one really cooks in Chiang Mai just because it is so cheap to eat out. Next, we got accommodation, and this is another thing that is insanely cheap in Chiang Mai. I think this is one of the reasons why it became such a digital nomad hotspot, because a lot of people that were on low budget, they would just go to Chiang Mai because you can find, honestly, so it depends where you are, by the way. So if you are sort of within the main areas that are the most popular areas in sort of the city center, then obviously it's going to be more expensive. But if you go like a little bit outside, 10-15 minutes by drive, then honestly the price drops quite a bit and you can find a completely new apartment. It might not be huge, but it's a completely new apartment in a really nice apartment building for as cheap as $300 a month, which is just mind-blowing. If you are looking in a little bit more sort of central area, then obviously the prices are going to increase. I would say maybe for the same type of apartment, it's going to be $400-500. And if you want something that's a little bit maybe bigger, because these are sort of just very small, I would say, 1-bedroom apartments. If you want something that's a little bit bigger, that's going to be maybe around $700-800. But really, it is one of the cheapest places, honestly, in the world to get accommodation. Maybe Vietnam is the only place I've been to that was as cheap or maybe cheaper, but other than that, I honestly don't think I've been to a place that is cheaper in Chiang Mai compared for accommodation compared to anything else. Next, we have transportation. So in general, taking Uber, taking cabs is very, very affordable in Chiang Mai. And I would say, depending again where exactly you live and where you're going, a lot of things you can actually walk around, but sometimes you will definitely need some transportation. And there are these buses, by the way, that you can just pay $1 and they basically like you can hop on and they take you somewhere. It's sort of like a shared thing. I've never really done much of that, but I know that exists as well. But in general, I would say if you're taking a cab, really it's going to cost you maybe around $4 to go anywhere pretty much. And also you do have an option that is sort of a scooter taxi, so that is much cheaper as well. Basically you might pay $1, $2 to just commute anywhere within the town. If we're looking at renting a scooter, honestly, scooters for some reason in Thailand, in general, they are a little bit more expensive than other countries in Southeast Asia. So I would say you're going to pay somewhere between $80 to $100 for a nice new scooter, and gas really doesn't cost pretty much anything. And another thing, which is kind of funny, but something you need to take into consideration as well if you're going to drive yourself or drive a scooter, you do need license, you do need international license, and most of the people don't actually have that. And sometimes you might need Thai license, basically convert your international license into Thai license. And if you don't have that, the police stops you and you need to pay a fine, and then you get a ticket for that fine. And with the ticket, basically, then you can drive without license for 3 days. So whenever someone stops you again, you can just show the ticket you already paid, they see the date, and they will just let you off. You will not need to pay again, which is such a funny concept, but that's how things work. And that fine is going to be around $10 as well. And it really depends where exactly you're going to be driving, but usually they have a few checkpoints during certain hours of the day within the city. So I would say that yes, somewhat you can avoid them, but most likely you are going to be stopped. So just something to maybe take into consideration as part of your budget, that yes, you will need to pay a couple of these tickets if you haven't gotten the proper license issued. Now, going out, when it comes to going out, I would say it is very, very affordable in general. Drinks, if we're talking about going out to bars, clubs, all that kind of stuff, Chiang Mai is definitely one of the cheapest spots, I would say, out there within probably even all of the Southeast Asia. A beer is going to cost you maybe a couple of dollars. If it's a spirit, maybe around $3-4. So it's very low end. And if we're talking of going out in terms of doing different things, that again, I would say is very cheap, very affordable. Going to movies is maybe around $3 to $4. Next, we have co-working. So there are a few different co-working spaces to choose from. There are a lot of digital nomads in Chiang Mai. So you definitely have a bit of a selection of the different co-working spaces. And in general, I would say co-working spaces are more or less around $100. So very, again, on the very cheap end. And when it comes to co-working spaces, they are nice. I wouldn't say there's anything that's super exceptional. There are some places around the world I've been to that just have these amazing co-working spaces. So in terms of what you get for the value, it's good, but it's not exceptional. But in general terms, it is very cheap. Oh, and also if you want to go work from different cafes, there are so many amazing cafes in Chiang Mai, and all of them have, well, not all of them, but most of them have really good internet as well. And that's what a lot of people do. And a cup of coffee is going to cost you maybe a couple of dollars. And as I said, a meal in those cafes is going to be maybe lunch, let's say, is going to be around $4 to $5. Now, when it comes to general goods, you do have sort of these big supermarkets, as I mentioned, and you do have basically everything you will really need. But at the same time, as I would say, there's a couple of things. So first of all, electronics, such as, let's say, something to do with computers or cameras, things like that, those are definitely more expensive. When it comes to clothes, it's a little bit different because yes, you do have some of your international brands and things like that, and the prices are more or less sort of the same. But also in Chiang Mai, you do have quite a few local stores. So you do have some local markets, you do have some of these night markets, and yes, they do sell food, but they also sell clothes, and it really depends on your style and all of that, because you definitely have, let's say, some of these t-shirts that you can buy for like $1, some of the pants you also can buy for like $2. They do have specific style. I would say they are a little bit more sort of a backpacker type of style. So if you really don't care too much, or if that is your style, then definitely you can find some super cheap options, honestly. And in general, I think Thailand does a lot of production when it comes to clothes. So you can find some good quality stuff for a cheap price. But I think it also all depends on what style you are actually into. Next, we got medical things. And when it comes to Thailand, I did go to hospital a couple of times for myself and a friend. And in general, I would say it's, again, depends what you compare it to, honestly. But I would say it's not the cheapest and not the most expensive place. So if you look, I mean, if you look in the United States, it's probably the most expensive place out there, and it's crazy what the costs are. But when you look at other places around the world, other digital nomad hotspots, I would say a lot of places, honestly, are probably cheaper. I'm thinking now, when I was in Colombia, being in Turkey, I got some medical stuff done, and it was really, really cheap. Thailand is more expensive. In general, it shouldn't break a bank. It's nothing that's crazy expensive unless you get into an accident or you need some surgery or something like that. So definitely check out, I will leave a link for the insurance that I use. Now, a few different extra things. So for example, let's say if you need a phone that's not really going to be expensive, that's going to be around $10 per month for around 10 gigs or even more than that, depending on which SIM card you go to, which carrier you're going with. If we're looking at the gyms are pretty cheap as well, around maybe $20 per month. If you want cleaning is very cheap. You can get it for, again, around $10 for someone to come and clean for 3 to 4 hours. A lot of accommodations, actually, they might include cleaning a couple times a week. Now, overall costs in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So a lot of people like this metric of, hey, can I live at a place for $1,000 per month? And most of the times, it's the case that yes, technically you can do that, but you're not really going to live a super comfortable life. But Chiang Mai, Thailand, honestly, I think is an exception to that. I think you can actually live a fairly comfortable life just spending with $1,000 a month. So as I mentioned, if we look at accommodation, you can get a very cheap apartment. You can get an apartment for as cheap as $300, $400, maybe $500. You can, if you want, you take some Ubers or you get a scooter for $80 per month. The food is insanely cheap. The going out is very cheap as well. So pretty much all of the aspects, honestly, of all of life, they are very, very affordable in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Maybe if you want to live in the best spot, you want to have a little bit more expensive apartment, a little bit bigger apartment, and you want to eat more Western food, obviously price is going to increase. So I would say if, let's say, you want to spend maybe $1,500 a month, I would say you're going to live a very, very comfortable life in Chiang Mai. And for 1,000 as well, you're not going to have that bad of a life. I think that overall Chiang Mai, Thailand, again, aside maybe from what I can think of is Vietnam, aside from that, I think it's probably one of the cheapest digital nomad destinations out there in the world. So I hope you find this useful. If you have any questions, if you're listening to this as a podcast, take the title, put it on YouTube, find a video, and leave your questions in the comment section. Also, if you have something else I think I forgot or something that might be useful, do leave that in the comments as well. As I said, I have some very useful freebies if you're into the digital nomad lifestyle or online business, digital marketing. So check out all of the links in the description. Make sure to check out my social media, my Instagram, Twitter, all of that kind of stuff. If you found this useful, make sure to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, put on those notifications. Stay awesome, and I'll see you soon.